On the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road.
He is the soul of American country music. The man with long braided hair, a weathered guitar named Trigger, and a voice that's etched into the hearts of millions through songs like On the Road Again. Willie Nelson's legacy shines so brightly, it's easy to forget he once was an orphaned boy growing up in the shadows of the Great Depression. That very boy would later write the timeless classic Crazy before anyone knew his name, rising to become the gentle outlaw who redefined country music. Today, he lives in a world of million-dollar homes and a ranch for rescued horses, a kind of luxury that feels humble, yet deeply admirable. But behind that empire lies a lifetime of hardship. His property was once seized. He was hit with a $32 million tax bill. He lost a son in a tragic accident, and he's been arrested for marijuana. And still, he never backed down. He keeps singing. He keeps fighting for justice for farmers, for the America he believes in. Willie Nelson isn't just about music. He is part of America itself. Today, we'll take a closer look at that journey. If you enjoy stories like this, please remember to hit the like button. It helps us a lot, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. When the world turned its back, a young boy found hope in an old guitar. What kept Willie Nelson standing through it all? Willie Hugh Nelson was born in 1933, right in the heart of the Great Depression. He grew up in Abbott, Texas, a small farming town where life was simple but far from easy. After his parents separated and eventually left, Willie and his sister Bobby were raised by their grandparents in a modest wooden home. They didn't have much, but that little house was filled with love and the sound of music coming from a worn-out radio. The Nelsons were a musical family. His grandfather played the fiddle. His grandmother played the organ at church. They had few material possessions, but they gave Willie something far more valuable: a love for music and a deep faith in God. When Willie turned 6, his grandfather gave him a small guitar and taught him his first 3 chords. Bobby played the piano, and together they sang gospel songs at their local Baptist church. No spotlight, no stage, just honest voices and creaky wooden pews. Willie wrote his first song at just 7 years old. No one remembers the lyrics, only the image of him sitting on the porch, nodding gently as he sang to the sound of the prairie wind. Back then, music was a place where he could hide a shelter from a world that wasn't always kind. He helped with chores around the house and earned a few pennies picking berries or doing odd jobs. At school, Willie wasn't particularly outstanding. He was teased for always carrying a guitar and for his fiery red hair that made him stand out. But none of that mattered. Music made him feel like he belonged, even if only in a small way. One afternoon, after walking more than a mile to catch a small-town performance, Willie sat quietly on the steps humming the tune of Bohemian Polka, something he'd once heard on the radio. In that moment, he saw it more clearly than ever. If anything could carry him beyond the borders of Abbott, it would be music. Not for fame, but to be true to himself. But with just 3 chords and a big dream, how could a red-haired boy from a forgotten Texas town possibly break through the locked gates of Nashville? When every door slammed shut, what made one young man keep knocking long after the world told him to give up? Few people know that during the darkest days of rejection, Willie Nelson quietly wrote the song that would bring Nashville to its knees. And from that very song, a whole new path opened up, one that would eventually lead to a career worth hundreds of millions. In his early adult years, Willie drifted between 2 worlds. He served briefly in the U.S. Air Force, but was discharged due to health issues. Back home, life remained uncertain. No degree, no clear path, no one to guide him. He took any job he could to support the one dream he had left: music. His first recording was titled, "The Storm Has Just Begun." He sent it out to record labels. Every rejection letter, every polite no only made him write more. But there were also nights when he sat alone in a radio studio and wondered, maybe I was wrong to think I could ever do something big. Then, in 1957, he left Texas and headed northwest to Portland, Oregon. There he continued working as a DJ, playing in small clubs and writing songs that would shape his career. Funny how time slips away, Hello Walls, Nightlife. Each one a glimpse into a soul growing up in solitude. And then came Crazy, a song Willie thought was too strange for anyone to sing. 3 years later, he took another gamble. With only a few dollars to his name, he packed up and moved to Nashville. It was the heart of country music, but also famously unkind to anyone who didn't fit the mold. Willie was turned down again and again. His voice was too raw, his look too dusty, cowboy, his lifestyle too far from polished Nashville norms. But he didn't give up a small publishing company. Pamper Music offered him a contract. At first it was just songwriting for others. Willie agreed because it brought him one step closer to the dream. He slept on a sofa in the office, lived on instant noodles, and kept writing. Then came the turning point. Charlie Dick, husband of Patsy Cline, heard Willie's demo of Crazy at the Pamper office. He brought it home and played it for Patsy. At first, she shook her head. The melody was too difficult, but it stayed with her. The next day, she recorded it, and within weeks, Crazy became the biggest hit of her career and the breakthrough moment for Willie Nelson. A song from the heart of an unknown writer was suddenly playing across America. From there, Willie began to step into the spotlight. In the 1970s, he left Nashville and returned to Texas, where the spirit of freedom was still alive and well. He created albums like Shotgun, Willie 1973, Phases and Stages, 1974, and most notably, Red-Headed Stranger, 1975, the record that cemented his image as the face of outlaw country, raw, honest, and defiantly different. From a DJ, nobody wanted a nameless songwriter behind other people's voices, to a man who defied the very industry that once rejected him. Willie Nelson proved that you don't always have to follow the paved road. Sometimes it's the dusty, lonely path you carve yourself that leads to true glory. But success doesn't always come without shadows. When the stage lights finally found him, could Willie Nelson stay true to himself, or would he lose his way in the very world he once dreamed of? From dusty roads to a multi-million-dollar estate, Willie Nelson made the journey. But what truly defines his wealth? Willie Nelson isn't just a voice steeped in American country music, he's a living icon. Ever since the release of Stardust in 1978, with its heartfelt covers of American standards, Willie showed the world that country music could be soulful, poetic, and timeless, no gimmicks, no pandering to trends. He simply sang the way he lived, honest, weathered, and deeply human. With On the Road Again, Willie turned the life of a traveling musician into a symbol of freedom and resilience. The song won a Grammy and became the soundtrack for countless road trips across America. Soon after, he became one of the legendary Highwaymen, a country music supergroup with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. Each man brought something unique, but Willie was the spirit of the outlaw country movement, a sound that defied polish, embraced grit, and stayed true to the soul. Even into his 80s, he never slowed down. In 2022, he won another Grammy with A Beautiful Time, a quiet reminder that music never ages even if we do. And in 2023, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not just as a country star, but as a cultural force. With more than 70 studio albums and hundreds of live shows, Willie Nelson has sold tens of millions of records and built a net worth estimated between 25 and 30 million even after losing much of it to back taxes. But for Willie, success was never measured in dollar signs. He once said, "I don't write songs to get rich. I write them to survive." So when a man who once found shelter in music suddenly had millions, where did he choose to build his dream? In the peaceful outskirts of Spicewood, Texas, there's a place Willie simply calls home. Not a mansion, just home. Set on over 300 acres, the main house is humble. A tin roof, weathered by time, creaky wooden steps, and a door that's rarely closed. Inside, the space is filled with warmth. His guitar above the fireplace framed tour photos from the 1970s, and sunlight pouring into a living room that opens to a long porch facing a Texas-style pool and grassy yard where old dogs nap in the sun. He has everything here: a personal recording studio, stables, greenhouses, even a small building just for drying guitars. But what makes this ranch special isn't its $39 million valuation. It's the memories. Every tree was planted after a long tour. Every room holds a melody. It's where Willie rests, looks out over the pastures, and writes about freedom, about America, about things that can't be confined. Far from Texas, on the island of Maui, Hawaii, Willie has another home, a little piece of heaven as he calls it, bought in 1983 for around $450,000. It sits quietly in a coconut grove with a sea-facing balcony and open windows that let the breeze flow through. It's not as grand as a Beverly Hills estate, but it's priceless to Willie for one reason: privacy. This is where he plays guitar alone in the morning, plays poker with Owen Wilson, meditates with Woody Harrelson, and shares dinners by the fire with family. In Maui, no one calls him the artist. They call him Uncle Willie. And he lives that way too in flip-flops, a faded cotton shirt counting waves and strumming old songs. If Texas is his roots, then Maui is where his heart catches its breath. Not far from there is Lucky Ranch, 700 acres of land where Willie cares for over 70 rescue horses. There are no signs, no tours, no fame. But every morning he shows up with apples, calls the horses by name, and checks in on each one. Many were abused or rescued from slaughterhouses. Willie doesn't just shelter them, he calls them friends. I sing to them every morning, he once joked. They never complain. Lucky Ranch doesn't appear on tourist maps, but to those who've been there, it's one of the few places where a celebrity truly lives. As himself, no cameras, no handlers, just Willie and the lives he's quietly saved. And if a man's life can be told through music, his car should tell part of that story too. The 1967 Ford Mustang, a lost symbol. In his early years of success, Willie owned a 1967 Ford Mustang, a classic muscle car that embodied rebellion and freedom. Deep red paint, black leather seats, it carried him across hundreds of stages from Texas to California. But in 1990, when the IRS seized his assets for unpaid taxes, the Mustang was taken too. It wasn't just a car, it was a piece of his journey stripped away. The Mercedes-Benz E320 CDI, unexpected green choice. Not everyone knows that Willie Forever, the guitar-slinging cowboy, once drove a Mercedes-Benz powered by biodiesel. The 2006 E320 CDI was modified to run on soybean oil, part of Willie's push for renewable energy. "I don't want my car running on blood," he once said. Driving it wasn't just practical, it was a statement, a reminder that even on the road, he carried his values. The Me and Paul bus, a rolling legend. Then there's the tour bus, Me and Paul, named after his longtime drummer, Paul English. Since 1983, this 40-foot bus has been Willie's rolling sanctuary: red velvet seats, oak dining table, a fold-down bed, and a fridge stocked with ginger beer. It's seen every kind of crowd, from small-town fairs to sold-out arenas. And in all that time, Willie's never replaced it. The Me and Paul is meticulously maintained, like a living journal of every laugh, every lyric, every night spent writing songs on the road. Some say if America had a country music spirit vehicle, this would be it. Willie Nelson doesn't live like your typical country star. He's played the biggest stages, but always returned to simplicity. And in that simplicity lies something no fame can buy: authenticity. Each morning at Spicewood, Willie starts his day not with meetings or handlers, but by checking on the horses he rescued. No matter his age or condition, he's kept this routine for decades, a quiet vow that compassion must always come before celebrity. At home, he still wears plain shirts and his signature bandana, an image tied to him since the 1970s. But few know those shirts were made by Manuel Cuevas, the same designer who dressed Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. Willie doesn't choose luxury to show off. He chooses it for the story behind it. Another lesser-known passion: martial arts. At 81, Willie earned a black belt in Taekwondo, not honorary, but through real practice. He said the discipline helps him stay focused through years of personal storms. Willie's also long been an advocate for sustainability. His vehicles run on biodiesel, and he once launched his own line of biofuel called Willie. He's never called himself an environmentalist, but he believes music and social responsibility should go hand in hand. Willie Nelson's life is a blend of old-school cowboy free-spirited artist and seasoned elder. He doesn't chase fame. He doesn't forget his roots. He lives in a way that brings him peace. Willie Nelson lives like a man who has touched freedom in how he sings, how he travels, and how he loves the world. But that freedom came with a price, because at times it wasn't just fate, but the government, the headlines, and even tragedy that tried to take it all away. When the IRS, the police, and even fate itself turned against him, how did Willie Nelson keep going? Still singing about freedom. Willie Nelson has never been the type to sit still when trouble came knocking. In the 1990s, he faced one of the biggest battles of his life against the federal government. After a string of poor investments made by third parties, Willie found himself owing the IRS more than $32 million in unpaid taxes. He didn't make excuses. He didn't run. As soon as the IRS began seizing his assets, Willie looked for a way forward. He released the IRS tapes. Who Will Buy My Memories, a stripped-down acoustic album sold by phone order without the help of a major label. Every dollar went toward settling his debt, but he didn't fight alone. A group of loyal fans stepped up and bought some of his seized possessions, only to give them right back to him. At a time before social media, that simple act spoke volumes. Willie Nelson wasn't just an artist, he was a living symbol of American belief. That mistakes can be corrected as long as you're willing to take responsibility. A few years later, a patrol car pulled over his tour bus, Me and Paul, in Sierra Blanca, Texas. They found marijuana. It wasn't the first time, but instead of hiding it, Willie smiled. "Marijuana should be legalized," he said calmly. No outrage, just quiet conviction. From that point on, he supported the Last Prisoner Project, an organization working to revisit prison sentences for nonviolent cannabis offenders, not because it was trendy, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. Then his body began to speak up too. In 1981, he nearly drowned while swimming in Hawaii due to a collapsed lung. In 2004, he underwent wrist surgery after more than 5 decades of playing guitar. By 2015, he sought stem cell therapy to help his breathing. When someone asked why he still toured in his 80s, Willie just smiled. "I sing because I'm still breathing." His personal life wasn't without turmoil either. His first marriage to Martha Matthews ended in chaos. There were heartbreaks and new beginnings. In the end, it was Annie D'Angelo, his 4th wife, who brought him peace. Since 1991, the two have built a quiet, grounded life together, raising 2 sons and finding a sense of balance Willie never had in his early years on the road. But the deepest pain came from family. In 1991, his son Billy passed away after battling depression. During that time, Willie went silent in public. He didn't speak much, he just wrote a few more songs and returned to the stage as if music was the only way to keep moving forward. And so one night near year's end, after the debts, arrests, and losses, Willie stood on stage at Farm Aid looking out at thousands still singing with him. He didn't raise his fist, he didn't shout, he simply lifted his hand, bowed his head, and smiled, not because he had won, but because he was still standing. From a man whose guitar and home were once taken from him to a timeless emblem of American resolve, Willie Nelson has never let anyone else write his story. But what is it that makes millions see him not just as a musician, but as a symbol of hope? The answer lies in what he leaves behind. As the stage lights begin to fade, what makes Willie Nelson an irreplaceable part of the American soul? For many, it's the music, more than 70 albums, heartfelt ballads, and haunting lyrics that capture the spirit of the American South. But for those who followed him more closely, Willie's true legacy stretches far beyond melody. In 1985, during a time when American farmers were struggling through economic crisis, Willie joined John Mellencamp and Neil Young to found Farm Aid, a concert series created to raise funds for family farmers facing bankruptcy and drought. To date, Farm Aid has raised over $48 million, helping thousands of small farms hold on to their land and their hope. But he didn't stop there. After undergoing a major medical procedure, Willie established the Willie Nelson Endowment for Urologic Research, giving back to medicine the same way he always gave to music. He's also been a longtime advocate for environmental sustainability and justice reform, launching projects like Willie's Reserve, a line of legal cannabis, and Willie, a biodiesel fuel used to power his own tour bus. In 2024, Willie made a surprise appearance on Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter album, bridging generations of American artists from classic country to modern soul. At 91, with long silver hair and a voice as steady as ever, his presence moved both younger listeners and longtime fans alike. And even now, he hasn't stopped. In 2022, he performed at Farm Aid alongside his son, Lucas Nelson. When the two embraced on stage, it wasn't just a performance, it was a moment of passing the torch, a living legend quietly handing down his fire to the next generation. After nearly a century on the road, Willie Nelson still lives simply on his Texas ranch with his fourth wife, Annie D'Angelo, his steadfast partner for over 30 years. They raised 2 sons together, Lucas and Micah Nelson, both now accomplished musicians, often sharing the stage with their father. Amid rescue horses, well-worn guitars, and the soft sound of music drifting through the air at dusk, Willie Nelson continues to hold on to the one thing that's never changed, living true to himself all the way to the end. Willie Nelson is more than a songwriter. He's a symbol of resilience, freedom, and compassion. In a world that seems to change faster every day, he stands as proof that the American dream still lives if you have the courage to hold it with your own 2 hands.